Hi folks, this is your instructor Michael Collins. I wanted to go over these Fiji files, explain them one by one so that it makes more sense whenever you're looking at this data and trying to figure out what it means. So I'm just going to go down the list of documents and photos, and that way you can get a clear idea of what we're trying to do here. So let's begin at the beginning. Okay, this is a from the Fiji Bureau of Statistics talking about the markets or the segmentation with respect to um, uh, employment, wages of employees, and things like that. So that might come in useful whenever you're talking about um, uh, wage earners on Kadabu and that sort of thing. So as you can see, it divides it up into sectors and a particular pay that they earn. So let's go on to the next one. This is a backup generator, and why that's important is that all the electricity on the island has to be produced locally. So that means it has to either be done through the use of generators or solar panels or wind or what have you. And while on the surface it sounds like a clean way to do it, it's actually pretty difficult to do, particularly with the generators, because you have to bring in very expensive fuel and carry it ashore in the most awkward way that you could possibly imagine, using small boats, a lot of labor, and so forth. So it's not easy at all. You'll see in a second what I'm talking about when we get to the fuel drums. But yeah, this is not easy, and also servicing them is very difficult too, because you have to bring people from remote distances to regularly service these things, which is also difficult. So solar panels are easy to use, but they do require most of the resorts and other tourist areas require the use of generators. And, it's expensive and not that seamless. Okay, chickens, they grow everything locally, so there's noticeable lack of beef cattle, plenty of pigs and chickens because they don't take up a lot of space and they're fairly efficient with producing meat. So if you have any idea of bringing beef in, it has to be imported from Australia, which is expensive and far. And most people can't afford it. So locals typically stick to chickens, pigs, and fish. And again, more chickens. This is their roost. Okay, this is the nearby village that I visited while I was in Kadavu. Nothing big. You can see the houses range from cinder block to tin sheeting right there. That's the walls of the houses. See this big piece of wood in the middle underneath that shed? That looks like a big log. That's actually the village drum. That's used to as ceremonial events and things like that, or to call out people, what have you. In other words, to gather for meetings or things of that nature. You'll also see on the side there at the little crest, that little hill off to the right there, there's a small solar panel powering the house there. People doing their laundry, hanging them from the line. The quality of housing varies significantly from one to the next. Some with cinder blocks, some with wood siding, some with metal sheeting with open air. And it gets pretty interesting whenever typhoons roll through there. You never know if your house is going to stay up from one day to the next. Okay, gas canisters for cooking, and also the hot water, tankless hot water heater. Why that's significant is the gas has to be brought in from outside. It's not produced locally, so it has to be shipped to Fiji, and from Suva in Fiji on the main island over to here, which increases the cost exponentially. And then there's the a tankless water heater. It's outside. The life of this tankless water heater is about a third what it normally is because it's exposed to the sea air. So not only is it expensive locally, but the life of this is diminished considerably because of the environment that it operates in. So that's important to note as well as far as the operating expenses go. Okay, this is a kiln for copra. Copra is dried coconut. That's one of the economic activities on the islands. And again, another view of the copra kiln. They used old wood to cook it, and that's again one of the ways they generate cash there. This is one of the partners. Now, why this is significant is that you can apply to this group for grants, and I don't know how or why they give away money like this, but they do. And part of their objective is to grow the economy in the Pacific Islands. And so Kadavu Tourism has in the past worked with other organizations like this, and they submitted grant applications for marketing and things like that, and they have been moderately successful in getting them. The reason for the success is that it helps the locals, mainly the villagers and things like that, have employment, and the opportunities for them are limited. So part of the reasons why these businesses have these is that it enables locals in order to have employment and wage earnings. You can see right here, that's one of the things that they do. So if you're looking for money for developing marketing funds, this is a good place to look. Again, background information about Fiji Pacific destinations, so on. This is believe their purpose here is to assist with destination marketing. I'm not too clear about this particular organization. I don't know much about it, but I know that's what they exist to do. And so Kadavu Tourism could possibly benefit from their assistance. A news article about tourism in Fiji might be useful. Country profile of Fiji, definitely will need this information. Ministry of Tourism report, great deal of information in here. You're probably definitely going to need to look at this, particularly as the strategic marketing for Fiji tourism in general, which Kadavu would come under. And of course, statistical news about visitor arrivals, very important. You have all the key players right here. Australia, which you can see is significant. Australia and New Zealand are the largest players, followed by USA. A lot of opportunities here in Japan, China, South Korea, and so forth. So something maybe worth looking at, but you'll probably need these figures if tourism marketing is part of your economic development plan. Fuel storage, why that's important. Fuel storage, fuel is incredibly expensive in Fiji, has to be locked up or it'll be stolen. They don't use that word, but that's what it means. The Fijians have this weird concept of shared use of materials, and in Western way of thinking, it's thievery. In their way of thinking, it's that they need it. It's sitting there, and I'll use it. And next time my neighbor needs it, that they can borrow from me. Truthfully, I don't get it, but that's the way they think. And so, but the problem with that is that the resource is never returned. So. That's why they have to lock this up. And even with that, there's no guarantee that this is going to remain where it is, and has in the past had issues with that. So Yeah, fuel is a very valuable resource and can be uh, one of the most difficult parts of the logistical puzzle for Fiji. Okay, a garden, why that's important. All things have to be grown locally. Um, the typhoon wiped out all the tomatoes while I was there. So you see whole bunches of lettuce. We had lots of lettuce to eat. But there are other vegetables there that are grown. And again, it doesn't make any sense to import. Believe it or not, the soil is pretty bad there for growing vegetables. I don't know why, but it's not all of Fiji, just this particular area. And again, it makes sense to self-sustain with your own vegetable garden because importing them from the other main islands is just prohibitively expensive. Okay, again, more tips about Fiji. Background information, we'll need that. Statistical news, this is about hotel occupancies in general. Now, keep in mind, Kadavu only has about 5 resorts, so this isn't going to affect them that much, but it is a trend that's worth noting if you're going to be talking about these kind of things. And it's certain that Kadavu is very different from the statistics that you have here, but regardless, it demonstrates larger trends, and it might be useful information for you. This is the inter-island ferry. All goods that come to Kadavu come on and off through this ferry. So it comes a couple of times a week, and as you can imagine, that it raises the prices of goods by having to have everything shipped this way. People coming to the islands, local people travel normally by ferry, and it's a pretty awful way to travel. Most people who've done it swear they'll never do it again. So it's not probably a great option for international tourists because the quality of the cabins and the ride and so on and so forth. But anyway, need to know that information if that's one of the things you're considering as far as experiential tourism and things like that. Again, another profile sheet, particularly with investment in Fiji tourism, might be useful information. Particularly these opportunities here: agritourism, spa tourism, health tourism, sport tourism, nautical tourism, retirement resort, so on and so forth. Yeah, that retirement resort might be a really good way to look at it. So, might want to take a look at that. And also foreign investments, that is also noteworthy because Fiji operates on a shoestring budget. There's just not a lot of money. So anyway, look at it, see if it has any value. This is a local guide. One of the men that I associated with while I was on the island is a really helpful guide. One of the interesting things about them is that he is the brother of the local chief who has almost all the informal authority nearby. So anything that this man requires or says of those around him will pretty much be done. So there's a hierarchy there, even though it's not clearly defined like you might see with the government. But yeah, this is worth talking about later on as well. Okay, again, ministry awards grants to local firms. These firms have requested funds to help them promote their businesses and things like this. So the Fijian ministry has allocated funds toward that end. So again, another area you might want to consider when you're looking for ways to develop marketing for this area. A report about the strategies and successes with industry, trade, and tourism, worth looking at, even though it's 4 years old already. That seems to be the nature of how quickly reports are developed, even though it has dateline of August 2017. It's worth noting, just because the trend is probably not changed as far as the economic development plan for the area. And again, this is an academic paper. Might be worth looking at, modeling Fiji tourism's arrivals. Pretty long, but you might glean some important information from this, and it's fairly recent. And again, this is marketing to China, very important. The Chinese tourism sector is growing, and this is an untapped area that could prove really beneficial for Fiji. So again, look at it, see if you can get something from it. Ibis World, just a profile of tourism in Fiji. Not Fiji necessarily, but the United States rather, I'm sorry. Gives you some industry statistics and information that you might find useful. So, don't know if you will or you won't, but again, it's like comparing a baseline. Why would Americans want to stay home for their tourism here, or why would they want to go to Fiji? And if you need to get them to Fiji, you have to compare them from what's locally available. And that's the reason for why this document is there. Again, this is another group that you can submit a grant to, requesting funds for marketing. Part of their job is to help develop economies in the Pacific regional area, and by doing so, that they will support the local people and grow the economies, and hopefully they have a mutually beneficial relationship. So look at it if you want to. I'll say that Palladium is one area that the Kondabu Tourism did get funds for their marketing in the past, and we're looking to get those again from the same group. I'm not sure how successful we'll be, but that's part of the idea. Again, population and labor force statistics for Fiji. Use it if you need it. Divided up into demographics, age groups, regions. You can see you have Kondabu over here. Again, another grant opportunity for marketing from the U.S. Embassy in Fiji. Might be worth looking at. It's certainly helpful. All money helps. Okay, this is the recycle area that I was looking at. Pretty small. I think they had just recently sent off a batch back to Sula. Okay, Reserve Bank of Fiji, background information about the economy. So if you look through all these things, you might find useful information, macroeconomic and financial data, demographics, so on and so forth. Tourism and hotel statistics and other industries as well, because keep in mind, Fiji is not just a one industry place. Granted, they do have a lot of tourism, but they have other interests as well, and they would like to grow other sectors of their economies. This is the school principal of the local area. You can see that he has a boat. That's the school bus. He drives around the local area to pick up the students, take them to school, and then he takes them back at the end of the day. So it can get really interesting, the ride. But yeah, it's pretty messed up. The government gives them money to pick up the kids with fuel and so forth. The principal has to provide weekly reports, but he has to do so with no funds from the government to pay for his fuel, which at this point I think is about $7 a gallon. It's pretty expensive for somebody on that kind of salary, which is really, really low. But anyway, that should give you an idea of the logistical challenges that the local governments have to face. Is students have to get back and forth to school on this quote-unquote bus. Solar panels, most economical way to generate electricity, cleanest way for sure. but again, they are expensive, and the entry barriers to entry are high, just because most people don't have the money or access to the technology to produce electricity on that level. So it might be a good idea to develop collaboratives um, with others to do this, but I don't know how they would do that exactly. But anyway, the batteries for the backups for the solar panels, again, very expensive, and these are outdated, so they need replacing, and they're not cheap. To do so would be require a major upgrade, and that's funds that they just don't have. Beautiful sunset over Kadabu. This is Tapa. This is one of the ways that the local women generate cash for themselves. It's a bark, and they lay it out on the grass to dry, and then they put it in patterns and beat it to make it into a fabric, and then they draw and paint on it and sell it, and they don't really make that much money at it, but it's still a way to generate cash, and it's traditional arts and crafts in Fiji. This is thatch. This is used to cover roofs. This is Tom Bashaw. He's the director of Kendavu Tourism. So yeah. And more about Fiji earnings from tourism. Good sheet information here. Might be useful. This is the local pig pen, and it seems that the pig has escaped, but that's where they normally keep them. This is a trash pile. This is one of the issues that would be concerning if you are successful in growing the business, because you have to bring all items in, but there's no place for them to economically be transported off. So if you're developing an ecotourism spot, your very success diminishes the quality of the ecology and the environment. So how do you solve this problem? And as you can see, the trash is not easily disposed of, and it can't be done economically. So you have to solve that problem going forward. And let's see. And I think that's it. So let me see. Yeah, I think that's it for the pictures. So let's. All right. So that's it. So anyway,